After years of waiting, the HD remakes of Suikoden 1 and 2 are set to come out this March 2025. So I figured I would make the most ill-timed video ever. Before we start, remember that my playthrough is fully available on a playlist on my channel. So whether you want to refresh your memory, listen to the story again, or just pretend you're informed about current thing, let's talk about the game. Suikoden is the creation of then Konami newcomers Yoshitaka Murayama and designer Junko Kawano, tasked to make an RPG for an unannounced console that ended up not being made. Shortly after, the theme was reassigned to the newly released PlayStation. Murayama's original pitch included influences of manga like Fist of the North Star and Captain Tsubasa, all that good shonen stuff. But he was concerned that his managers will not resonate with that. So instead, the major influence was going to be the 14th century Chinese novel known in America as The Water Margin. This novel is considered as one of the pillars of Chinese literature, among with that one with the handsome Chinese people that always puts me to sleep, and the one with the monkey. Water Margin is the less famous of the three, but still has a handful of adaptations. The story deals with 108 outlaws destined to join together to form an army and take on a corrupt government. Whew, one more outlaw and we might have gotten in trouble, boys. I was tempted for a second to pad the video length explaining this story, but there are already plenty of videos on YouTube that give an excellent summary of the plot if you're curious. Of course, the game doesn't follow the story bit by bit, but the influence is very clearly seen by character and city designs, and also on the music. What will always stay is the theme of the Stars of Destiny, that will be consistent in every game in the series going forward. Now, this first Suikoden was first released on... Wait, what the hell is this? Okay, listen, it was 1996, okay? It was very common at the time that American producers were still a bit embarrassed of the anime aesthetics and would often change original art or music. Surely, modern localizers wouldn't alter the product to fit their whims, right? Anyways, the game also came out on the Saturn and Windows 95, but the only English version was released on the PlayStation 1 on December 1996 by Konami. Back in the day when Konami was respectable. Feels like forever ago, doesn't it? Even when the game was new, it was already a little rough looking compared to its competition, but it had its charm, and still does. That's enough introductions already. Let's go through the game together and start playing. The game has a lot of official canon, and I am a notorious canon respecter, so let's use the correct name. We play as the son of General Theo, an important officer of the Scarlet Moon Empire, and a personal friend of the Emperor. We start with an audience with Barbarossa, and we get hit on by the court magician and obviously not evil, Lady Windy. From this day forward, our character will start working for the Empire. After we leave the palace and return home, we are introduced to our first party members, Gremio, Cleo, Pan, and our childhood friend, Deadmeat, Ted. One thing I always have to say about Suikoden, especially the early ones, is that despite having a gigantic cast, the games themselves are really short for JRPG standards, clocking at around 20 hours or less. The writers really do perform miracles to deliver characterization with a very limited amount of screen time. So, after a nice dinner, we're dispatched to our first mission on the back of a dragon. We are to retrieve the Emperor's horoscope or something, but of course, as it usually happens, the Dragon Knight Fuchs does not fly us all the way to our destination. So we have ourselves our very first dungeon and our first experience with combat. One of the first things I noticed while playing this game for the first time in like 15 years is that nothing is really explained. Why can I attack? Why can't I use magic? How come I got stunned after using this? Figure that out yourself. Thankfully, it's not really that complicated or difficult if you already have some experience with games like this. Put the tanky short-range characters in the front row and the squishier long rangers on the back. Fill the other spots with medium-range characters. The game also has a neat set of options that somewhat help alleviate common JRPG problems. You don't want to spam attack 6 times in a row? Use the free will option. Don't want to waste time fighting weak monsters that give no reward? Use the let go option. As long as you're always well stocked with healing items, you don't waste your more powerful attacks right away, and you're always mindful which characters act first and which ones are slower, and you'll be just fine. Anyways, then this fucking asshole appears and summons a boss, and I better say it right now, most bosses are just an endurance round, and there isn't really too much science to most of them. After defeating him and entering the tower, we get a very ominous scene with Lady Legnat. We are very much looking like a chosen one today. After it's all done, we are teleported to our Dragon Rider and return to the capital city. We do get a chance to roam around and buy, sell, and equip stuff like any other RPG. And this is the perfect time to mention the inventory system. Every character has their own limited inventory, and you will waste tons of time passing items back and forth when you need to resupply or upgrade equipment. I got used to it pretty quickly and became pretty skilled at shuffling items at high speed, but not everybody is going to be as patient. After consulting with the obviously evil officials, we are assigned to our new mission: go to a nearby town to collect taxes. Once there, we're sent to the mountains to take care of some bandits. I have to mention that games like this don't have quest logs, so especially this early in the game you had to pay lots of attention to the dialogue or you could miss essential information. Like, where the hell is this mountain? Going up the mountain, you'll notice another very common JRPG pattern. There are 2 roads, one goes forward and the other is a dead end, usually with a treasure chest. I would really like to tell you that dungeon layouts improve later, but that doesn't quite happen. Eventually, we're thrust into another JRPG staple, an unwinnable boss battle. Ted saves the group by using a mysterious magic spell and leaves the whole party in shock. Still, the group continues to go up the mountain and we have another boss battle against the bandits. After we finally defeat them, we can return to the capital. Ted suddenly gets summoned by Lady Windy for a friendly chat where nothing bad is going to happen. That very same night, a wounded Ted walks into the protagonist's mansion and confesses that he's the bearer of a true rune called the Soul Eater, and Windy has been chasing him for hundreds of years to obtain its power. And I don't really want to enter a lore rabbit hole right now, but true runes are a really big deal in the world Suikoden, and every protagonist in every game of the franchise ends up using one. Tyr inherits the power of the rune, and shortly after we realize that Pan has betrayed the group and is still loyal to the Empire. Since nobody knows the rune has been switched, Ted takes advantage and surrenders himself while the rest of the group is forced to escape. After taking refuge at the local inn, we are almost discovered, only to be helped by a man named Victor, with a K. With nowhere to go, we accept meeting Victor's friends. We cheat our way through the gate and escape the capital city. We will arrive at Lennon Camp. After going through the secret entrance, Victor introduces us to the head of the Liberation Army, Odessa. We are hesitant to just join the rebel army and turn to leave, but a messenger interrupts, seeking help to rescue the mountain bandits we captured not long ago, who are about to be executed. Feeling responsible, we have to return and set them free. Thankfully, I still remember the location of the town. Victor sets a fire and we take advantage of the distraction to enter the deceptively big house. After fighting several groups of Imperial guards, we awkwardly rescue Barkas and Sidonia. After the job is done, we return to the rebel base. Once we arrive, Odessa lets us in on her new plan. We need to help her deliver the blueprints for a new weapon, the Fire Spears, that will allow the rebels to face the Empire on a more even ground. And by now, this has happened a lot of times. We can make a decision if we want to help her or not, but the game will not continue until we do. Most choices in the game are complete non-choices, except the ones that aren't. So it can be very confusing if you're just going to be trapped on an endless loop or accidentally screwing yourself over and getting a bad ending. Eventually, Odessa joins the group and we set off to cross the mountains to deliver the blueprints. There's a bit of a comedy sequence where we get roofied on the inn at the top of the mountain, but we eventually make it to our destination. That night, Odessa has a heart-to-heart with us where she points out we have something special, and trusts we make the right decision in supporting the Liberation Army's cause. It's a bit of a stretch that important characters just trust you so quickly, but we can explain it in lore as we are the Tenkai Star, or the Chief Star of Heaven. Basically, our superpower is having a persistent 20 charisma and unspoken risk, like the kids say nowadays. Arriving back at base, things have gone horribly wrong, and we can save the game at the dying innkeepers that it has a good detail. Odessa ends up mortally wounded during the Imperial ambush and gives us her last request: deliver a earring to her brother and get him to join the cause. We are also to hide her death to avoid the hit to the army's morale. So from now on, we are Odessa's top guy.
Odessa was top guy. What am I gonna do? Odessa chose me to lead the revolution.
I have to mention that for such a simplistic game, the sprite animations, the dialogue and the music were very effective. A great, impactful dramatic sequence. We get another pseudo-comedic scene trying to cross an Imperial checkpoint, where we will meet Ein Guide, that basically lets us go free. This will come into play way later into the game. Afterwards, we finally reach Matthew, who doesn't want to help at first. He's one of those characters that regrets his past and doesn't really want to commit the same mistakes again. But after saving his school from an Imperial attack, he reconsiders. The next order of business is getting ourselves a base. To do that, we need to beat the only sailor in town in a game of dice and make him go to the abandoned lake fortress. The game is completely luck-based, and it took me like 3 or 4 tries before I could win. The lake fortress is of course filled with monsters, so we'll need to defeat the dragon at the bottom to clear it, and I would say this is the first boss so far that poses actual danger. Don't be afraid to farm a little in the dungeon, go back to town to rest and resupply, and keep doing it until you feel ready. After we're done, we finally have our own headquarters. Lady Legnat will show herself once again for another talk about destiny. And fucking asshole will join the group. Yay. And here is when the game opens up a little bit. You see, every Suikoden game has this neat gimmick where you can recruit many characters, 108 of them to be exact. Some will be fighters, but others will provide quality of life for your base, like opening up shops, installing an elevator, unlocking minigames, and other activities. It's a very fun and unique idea, and I've always wondered why other games don't try something similar. Anyways, from this point forward, you need to keep your eyes peeled for recruitable characters. Some will join right away, some will need you to reach a certain level of strength, and others will require you to have a specific character in your current group. You have to be careful because it's possible for some characters to be lost forever, and you need all the characters to get the best ending. Next mission is to recruit Matthew's old friend Lepant. Once we reach the town of Kuan, we realize that we are on a JRPG. We can't just walk into the man's house and talk. We have to pull a weird heist with the help of Kryn to steal a sword. And of course, the house is not a normal house either. After a couple of gimmicky sections and avoiding getting roofied again, we have our audience with Lepant, who rejects us at first, but conveniently enough, his wife gets kidnapped. We follow Lepant on his rampage and he joins the party. And a small rant here, every time a new party member joins in a moment like this, it gets into wrong spot information. Lepant is an S-range character, and he can't do anything in there. Partly my fault, I always forget to relocate them quickly, but still pretty annoying. Finally, we get to confront Krace, but our boy Pan regrets his actions and betrays the Empire to join us. The next decision to execute Krace or not really has no impact on the rest of the game, but canon says he dies, so he dies. After accepting Pan into the fold once again, we can return to base after another job well done. Upon returning, the mountain bandits are there and we all have a very happy celebration dinner. But peace doesn't last long as we are attacked by a ninja assassin. Tyr survives the night, but problems arrive the very next morning. We find Kirkis the elf, who swam all the way here to ask our army for help. We decide to send a team to the elf village to investigate. Making our way through the forest, we'll find Vicky, one of the most important and useful NPCs. But for now, let's keep moving forward. On our way out of the forest, we'll find the abandoned Kobold village and be confronted by Kuromimi. After we reach the exit and finally get to the elf village, they'll send us straight to jail. Along with former Imperial soldier Valeria, we develop a plan to ask the Dwarves for help, because they're the only ones capable of countering the new Imperial weapon. The elf Sylvina helps us escape and we set forth to the land of the Dwarves. Valeria is one of the top frontliners in the game, by the way. Her rune does a truckload of damage that has no drawbacks, and she can wear shields, which gives her above-average defense. Once we reach the king of the dwarves, he really doesn't care much about the elves, but he proposes a challenge for us. If we breach the dwarven vault and steal something, he'll help us nullify the Empire's weapon. The vault is a relatively long dungeon, and it probably has the worst layout in the entire game. I mean, look at this. There's also a couple of puzzle sections, but it's nothing you can't handle. The boss was very annoying as well. He's immune to fire magic, so if you just brought Cleo with her fire rune, you're going to have a bad time. On our way back, it seems we're too late. The Empire has solved racism with a weapon of mass destruction, the Burning Mirror. And this is probably the first time the Empire has been evil on a grand scale. I mean, sure, Windy is obviously a villain, and we have met a handful of scumbag Imperial officers, but now we can see just how bad the Empire is. After Kirkis has his moment on the destroyed Elf City, we try to get back through the Kobold settlement. But before you go, be sure to re-enter the ruins so we can recruit this little fella. Once you do, you'll gain access to the world map. Believe me, you don't want to navigate the rest of the game without this. So anyway, we get ambushed, but we are saved by Matthew and our army. It turns out that Kirkis' waifu was alive and brought help. This leads into our first army battle, another Suikoden staple. The incarnation of army battles in Suikoden 1 is not the best. It's basically a rock, paper, scissors system with RNG on top. As you gain more recruits, you can do things like use spies or other buffs, but getting lucky is usually the only thing you can do. After we win, the Imperial General Kwanda attempts to use the Burning Mirror, but the Dwarven King saves the day. Every NPC we have met in this little arc joins the group, and the only thing left is entering the fortress, getting to the upper floors, defeating a freaking dragon, and finally having a duel. And this is yet another Suikoden staple, a 1v1 duel, and it's also a rock-paper-scissors scenario. But this time we at least have a hint of what the enemy will do thanks to their dialogue. The game makes it obvious the general was being mind-controlled, and if we want the true ending, we have to spare him. In the end, we secured a great victory and many new recruits. 3 months have gone by. We're finally visited by the original members of the Liberation Army, and it's time to break the news that Odessa is dead. Flick doesn't take it very well, but after a good heart-to-heart, we have a new objective. With the help of Flick's recruits, we are strong enough to advance on the Empire's dominion in the west. And we jump right into 2 consecutive army battles, but the second one is unwinnable. Eventually, Milch Oppenheimer is going to use biological weapons on us. With that name and that look, I don't know if I should make jokes about Milch storytime or war crimes, but I don't think it's worth the effort. We need a way to nullify Milch poison. We'll be joined by Victor, Flick, and Deadmeat, Gremio. But this time we don't have a clear goal of where to go. At this point, don't neglect recruiting Helion and grabbing the blinking mirror, one of the most important items in the game. This will unlock the teleporting system. By using the blinking mirror on your inventory, you will be teleported back to base. Once there, you can speak to Vicky to be teleported anywhere you want. Now, we need to find a doctor that can prepare the antidote, but we just have a couple of very subtle hints to work with. What you have to do is use the boat to try and get to the isolated house. And you have to touch the correct whirlpool for the quest to advance. If you are the kind of player that avoids obvious hazards, you might get stuck not knowing what to do. Once you have activated the next step on the quest, you can finally recruit Jen and Kamandol that will upgrade the boat so we can finally reach Dr. Lucan. Anyways, the good doctor tells me to go fuck myself, only to get kidnapped a second later. So we need to get some false documents made, and we have a couple of funny scenes with Flick. And let me tell you, we have to appreciate the comedy because things are about to get dark. Our team manages to infiltrate the prison and rescue the doctor only to be trapped by Milch and a bottle of flesh-eating spores. Gremio then volunteers to keep the door closed and save everyone until there is nothing left of him but his clothes. But there is no time to mourn as the final assault of Milch begins. After we complete the army battle and reach the end of the dungeon, we confront Milch, who was also being controlled by a black rune. And if you want that good ending, you have to spare him as well, despite the rest of the party being understandably upset. Things appear to be done for now, but the game surprises us. The Imperial Army is closing in on your headquarters, and it looks like we have another unexpected battle on our hands. Kazumi from the village of the ninjas has come with news that General Teo himself is on the way. This leads to another army battle, and it's yet another unwinnable fight. During our retreat, Pan offers himself as a sacrifice to stop the general, and you get to control him in a duel. And the twist is, you can actually survive this duel provided Pan was leveled and well equipped beforehand. If you lose the duel, Pan will be canon dead and the good ending will be lost. And I have to comment on this again. We were just recovering from losing Gremio, and most first-time players might lose Pan as well. This is a great 1-2 punch of drama. And even if you save Pan, you have another great moment as well. He could have just been hungry karate man the whole game, but with minimum dialogue and minimum exposure, he has a nice little story arc. I just think that's neat. Leknat visits for some more mysterious words of encouragement. She explains more about Windy and the 27 true runes. She could have done this a little earlier, but it's better late than never. Our next mission is looking for the secret factory that was producing the fire spears that were hinted at earlier in the game. So we assemble a team and go get them. On our way to the factory, we'll walk through a ruined town called Kaleka. For some reason the game is really vague about what this place is and what happened, but it is actually significant story-wise. To explain it really quickly, the Empire faked an attack on a friendly settlement to rally support against invading countries. This is the incident that caused Matthew and other characters to defect and leave the Empire. When we finally reach the factory, we get a series of scenes featuring our Poison Tea friends and Ronnie Bell that will help us transport the spears back to the boat. Once we arrange the transportation back to base, we get several new recruits. With these new weapons, we can launch the army battle against Theo, which you can win simply by spamming the charge command. After that, there is nothing left but a climactic duel between father and son. At the end, Theo dies and upgrades the Soul Eater rune. The new spell practically trivializes most of the game and makes XP farming a breeze if you're patient enough. Our next objective is taking over the fortress of Lorimar, but when we arrive, something's strange. There's nobody there and all the graves have been dug out. We arrive at Warrior's Village, where we discover that a vampire called Necklord is dominating this zone. This vampire is also Victor's sworn enemy, so it's personal for him. The next morning, out there in the sunlight, by the way, we fight another unwinnable boss battle against Necklord, who kidnaps the village chief's daughter Tengar. And nobody's going to comment that Sorak's car goes above his eye patch? No? It's just me? Okay. We need some kind of a special magical weapon, and as it happens there seems to be one on the nearby monastery. How convenient. Behind the monastery there is a mysterious magical cave, and at the end a magical sword. The sword has a mind of its own and uses a spell to send us back in time. I really like this next section, but the sequence of events that led us here is questionable at best. It doesn't seem very clear if this is just a vision or we actually traveled back in time. Anyway, we get to witness a child version of Ted, and how he inherits the Soul Eater. He escapes the destruction of his village by Windy and her buddies and is cursed to wander alone for several hundred years before he finds us again. Another small but very effective dramatic scene. When we go back to the future, Victor becomes the new user of the Star Dragon Sword, and now we can hunt vampires. The entire team arrives at the castle, and after Higgs joins, we start our climb to the top. But I do recommend you go back down and equip the new character. Also restock on items if you haven't yet. The castle has this little puzzle that seemed a little bugged for me, but if you miss the correct order of the paintings, you need to leave the screen and enter again for it to reset properly and try again. When we get to the top, we'll face Necklord, and this is the only time during my playthrough that I actually died. Let's analyze what I did wrong. First, I started the battle with some characters at mid to low HP. Other mistake was that I chipped out on equipment for some of them. But my worst mistake was that I was still using weak medicine, so I just got outdamaged. When you finally overcome Necklord, he dies in what is sure to be a definite death that will certainly not cause us problems later. This makes Victor leave the army for a while, and we return to our castle to see what's next. Now it's time to ask for the Dragon Knight's help, so we depart on a diplomatic mission with Humphrey. The way there seems to be closed, and after a very annoying detour, we get help from another French stereotype. The way is unlocked and we go through another dungeon. After reaching the end, we realize what the Dragon Knights have been hiding. It seems all the dragons have fallen ill. We talk to their leader Joshua, who asks for Dr. Liukan. Liukan discovers that the dragons have been poisoned, and of course, we must fetch the ingredients to create an antidote. Soon we'll be riding a dragon to seek Ballet. After we find and fight this very strange boss at the end of the dungeon, we will have a couple of surprise guests dropping in. With the last of his strength, Ted surrenders to the Soul Eater, giving us the final power-up, and Windy is forced to retreat. Again, another very effective little dramatic scene. Upon returning, the game throws another surprise, as Fudge has gone by himself to gather the final ingredient. In the Imperial Garden, he is confronted by the Emperor himself, who seems like a nice guy, actually. When things seem to be going okay, Windy shows up and blows Fudge out of the sky. Fudge manages to survive, but in yet another dramatic punch, his dragon was mortally wounded and was sacrificed as the last ingredient for the cure. Without a dragon, Fudge is exiled from the Dragon Knights and falls under the protection of Humphrey. This is something that I haven't mentioned yet, but it may seem strange that the game spends so much time fleshing out what seems to be a tertiary character at best. But one of the things you have to know about the franchise is that a lot of the characters and stories bleed into each other in a way that kinda brings a smile to your face. You'll be playing another game and recognize this character or that character, or maybe this other character is related to another, or maybe it's a reference to something or somewhere you read about in a previous game. It doesn't feel cheap or forced or as a reference for its own sake, one of the strengths of this series. Once our business with the Dragon Knights is concluded, we receive news that a messenger has arrived. After that scene ends, before moving on, this is the best moment to drop everything and start collecting the Stars of Destiny. Just go around the world, talk to everyone, and collect every character you have missed. Some of them can be very annoying. Farming the item for this bitch to join took me like 40 minutes. You should keep doing this until the castle is at max level. Try leaving and re-entering the castle by boat to trigger this little cinematic. Once you see this, you should be able to recruit the strongest characters in the game. And this is not a guide-style video, but I feel bad if I don't at least point some of them out. Peshmerga is in the last room in Necklord's castle. Crowley is in this hidden room in the monastery cave. Mace is inside his house in Seek Valley, and he requires all the other blacksmiths in your active party. Leon is in an abandoned house in Kaleka. He will require you to talk to Matthew and come back. This character is the easiest one to miss, because if Matthew is busy with the main quest, you might accidentally softlock yourself from obtaining him. You should probably make a hard save by this point just to be safe. When you feel ready, let's keep going. Victor has been imprisoned, along with an important man named Warren. Matthew plans a surprise attack to rescue them. After a small exchange of words, we assault the northern checkpoint and recruit Griffith. We recruit Griffith, who doesn't seem like a bad guy either. Suikoden really likes to do this. Not everyone on the enemy side is a stereotypical villain. After the way to Moravia Castle is opened, the plan is to sneak into the prison, while Matthew pretends to be captured and attempts to talk General Kasim down. The dungeon should be pretty standard by now. We are forced to use Kasumi and Krin on this run, so hopefully you leveled them up before this. Also notice there's an old friend in there as well. We might need to return and recruit him later. Once the rescue is done, we manage to convince General Kasim to join without a fight. I kinda let a lot of Matthew's super complex plan out of the explanation, but hey, name drops for the sequel. We are nearing the end of the game, as the last thing we need to do is secure a way into the capital. We will assault the fortress of...
Scheherazade. Scheherazade.
There's going to be a scene of every character preparing mentally for the battle ahead during the night. However, the load times on the PS1 kinda ruined the flow of this moment, so I took the liberty of making my own edit. I'm gonna make an exception and shut up during this sequence. Matthew pulls another pro gamer move by using an ice dragon to craft a small army of boats and catch the enemy by surprise. Once we meet the new enemy general and finish the army battle, we'll continue to the dungeon. At the end, we will fight a giant clamshell. We are on a JRPG, alright. On our way back, we find Sonja waiting for us and she's really pissed. Your dad was hitting that, so she's technically your new mom. Suddenly, someone lights the fire early, and now we have a climactic boss battle while the fortress burns down. Turns out, Theo is such a chad, Sonia wants to throw herself into the fire, but we don't let her. When we finally escape, we find out that Sanchez was a spy all along, and Matthew has been wounded. The twists just keep happening. Matthew stops Flick from executing Sanchez in an attempt to preserve the army's morale. There's only one objective left, an attack on the capital. Don't forget to pick up Sonia from the castle cell, and also this is the last chance you'll have to collect every character or you'll miss the good ending. Back at base, it's time to rally the army and start the march on the capital. All the characters join for one last triumphant speech. If you gathered all 108 stars, Legnat will appear and bring Gremio back to life. Congratulations, we just unlocked the good ending. After another scene where our army prepares for the battle ahead, the final stretch of the game begins. When approaching the capital city, we find that there's a giant army of monsters led by Juver. Legnat and Joshua use the power of their true runes to make most of the monsters disappear, which kinda begs the question of why did you even introduce this plot point if you were going to kill it in the very same scene. Anyway, after the final army battle has ended, we send our elite team through the city. On the entrance to the castle, I'm Guide, the general that helped us very early in the game, is there for a boss battle. I really like this trope of, this guy is cool and knows this is wrong, but he's so loyal he's going to fight to the death anyway. Rest in peace. This last dungeon is all about draining your resources with unavoidable battles, but you're actually able to walk out and go rest at almost any point if you need to. Eventually we will reach the castle roof, where we'll confront Emperor Barbarossa, who uses the power of his true rune to turn into the final boss, the Golden Hydra. This is probably the only boss that kinda has a gimmick to it. One of the heads is resistant to magic and has the power to heal the others or even revive them. After the battle, the generals that moved to our side come to talk the Emperor down, but Windy finally shows up and nukes everybody. When everything seems lost, the souls of Odessa, Ted, Theo, and Gremio? This doesn't really work if you bring Gremio back to life. Is a resurrected Gremio a zombie? Did he die for a little while just for this sequence? Listen, we're almost near the end, I ain't got to explain shit. After Windy has been repelled, the Emperor grabs her and confesses that he was immune to her control magic this entire time. He was just the Emperor of the Simps. As his final action, the Emperor takes Windy and goes his own way by jumping to his death. But we are not done. It's time for that one trope where the whole castle is going to collapse because the boss is dead. Doesn't really make sense at all, but it's tradition. I'm talking about tradition, but Victor and Flick get their own go on without me scene. I know their picture is on the sequel's cover, but let's pretend anyway. After our triumphant exit, we cut to Matthew, who expresses both regret and relief after hearing the war is finally won. Then he passes on. Do I really need to mention it? This dramatic scene is pretty damn good. Finally, we get to see a presentation that gives us a small text summary of what happened with every character after the final battle. There is also a little post-credit scene where the main character just runs away from the responsibility in the middle of the night. And that's it. Suikoden is finished. It might have sounded like I was being too critical or too nitpicky, but the reality is that I really love this game. I'm constantly surprised just how this very short game manages to have good drama and character work with such limited resources, and despite all his faults. Maybe that's just nostalgia talking, you tell me. And I know what you might be thinking. Is this guy really going to make a video about Suikoden without talking about the music? And I've been racking my brain trying to figure out a way to review the music, but I just lack the language and expertise to describe music with words. So instead, I made a little compilation for you. The composer Miki Higashino did not make a lot of soundtracks before retiring, but believe me, Suikoden 1 and 2 are pretty high up there even with the stiff competition at the time. I do have to point out she just returned from retirement somewhat recently, and you can visit her on Twitter. Well, that's it for today. See you guys on the next one.